Hi, my name's Amir, and this is Why'd You Do That PF2E. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is my favorite tabletop role-playing game. It might be my forever game. And on this channel, I want to get into why the game does what it does and what it can mean for a fun game for you and your friends. Unfortunately, we do not live in fun times. We live in a time where many of us are forced to be complicit in the genocide of the Palestinian people. I, as a Canadian, am no different. And Paizo is even more so, not just because they are an American company and it is only American aid, trade, and weapons that are keeping the genocide going, but because they have a larger platform than me and have chosen to not use that platform to speak against the genocide of the Palestinian people that their taxes are directly being used to massacre. It goes deeper than that, though. Paizo is a company that creates culture, and the culture that they create is Islamophobic, making their complicity in the genocide even deeper. Yes, I am accusing here in this video Paizo of being Islamophobic. Now, there is nuance here, and most of the nuance comes from the fact of Paizo being Islamophobic because they exist and are steeped in a North American culture that is Islamophobic, as am I. The difference, other than their larger platform, is they seem to have a blind spot for that Islamophobia that I speculate can be explained by the lack of Muslims in their management and maybe even workforce. They do have Muslim freelancers, though, some of whom have signed an open letter calling on Paizo and the Paizo Union to do more to speak against the ongoing genocide. I would encourage people at Paizo to reach out to them and sensitivity consultants and see what they think of the accusations I'm making in this video. Just like any other group of people, us Muslims are all individuals, and I don't expect Paizo to take one Muslim fan's word for this, but I do expect them to take this accusation of Islamophobia seriously and do their due diligence to uncover and address it. For anyone who wishes to push back against the idea that North American culture is Islamophobic, I can only point out that in an American Senate judiciary hearing in September 2024 that was meant to combat hate, a sitting US senator repeatedly attacked the only Muslim presenting the hearing with Islamophobic tropes based on no other evidence than her being Arab and her faith. The fact that he could engage in this bigotry and not face any significant consequence proves that his attacks are acceptable in the culture that he works in, an Islamophobic and anti-Arab one. There are a lot of other examples, of course, but this one is particularly illustrative. Now, the way that Paizo contributes to culture is through the lore of their RPG setting, and I would be remiss here to not point out the many ways in which the setting is actively anti-Islamophobic. The region of Qadira and the Khalishite Empire are the parts of the setting that are coded to be Middle Eastern and therefore stereotypically Muslim in North American culture, and they avoid some of the most negative real-world stereotypes that could be applied to it. A large part of this is because the main deity of the region, Sarenrae, is an actively noble bright god of goodness and redemption, and the iconic cleric of the lore, Kyra, is portrayed as a heroic and noble Middle Eastern-coded woman dressed in what looks like incredibly practical desert rope-style armor and with her hair covered as a part of it. Her backstory has no mention of misogyny at all. These elements of the lore do an amazing job of undercutting the image of Muslims and Middle Eastern peoples as being anti-women, barbaric, uncivilized savages against whom violence is acceptable, the opposite of the children of darkness label that the Israeli prime minister seeks to label the Palestinian people as in order to justify the incredible violence the state of Israel is committing against not only them, but now the people of Lebanon as well. A prime minister that has a warrant out for his arrest from the International Criminal Court. Not only that, but Paizo has shown a consistent track record of fixing problems in their settings. They took the classic Dungeons and Dragons description of phylacteries as evil devices and completely changed them in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which removes a very ugly bit of anti-Semitism in the lore, as, in real life, phylacteries are religious objects that are part of some Jewish prayer rituals. And I will take a quick moment here to state I had no idea that phylacteries were actually objects that real-life people used. My only exposure to them was through D&D's evil portrayal of them. RPG lore is not frivolous. It does matter, and it has a real effect on people's view of the world. Another bit of lore they have very recently fixed in October of 2024 is that of the Inquisitor, which was a very popular class in Pathfinder 1st Edition, inspired by the historical figures of the Inquisitors, who were officials in the Catholic Church whose purpose was to root out heresy. One of the most well-known of these were the Spanish Inquisition, who horrifically persecuted people in Spain who were, or were suspected to be, Jewish or Muslim. In Pathfinder 1st Edition, the iconic Inquisitor was portrayed in red armor that was reminiscent of the Spanish Inquisition. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, in the War of Immortal sourcebook, the Inquisitor has instead become a type of ranger called a Vindicator, with the note that only evil Vindicators are known as Inquisitors, and her colors have changed to more lore-appropriate colors. In a blog post in September, Paizo noted the reason for the change was the negative historical connotations the term inquisitor brought up. I will go ahead and say that as far as I'm concerned, these negative connotations are anti-Semitic and Islamophobic, and that Paizo has done the right thing. Which leads me to the Islamophobia that Paizo still contains in their lore. These are also a reference to history and to historical figures very similar to the Inquisitor. These are the Crusaders. Now, in Paizo lore, Crusades have been referenced in at least 3 ways. The Silver Crusade was a good Pathfinder Society faction dedicated to destroying evil. The Shining Crusade was a good decades-long war fought against evil undead. The Menedivian Crusades were a series of 5 campaigns led by the good Church of Iamade against evil demons. And these are historical references to the real-life Crusades, which were a series of 4 campaigns fought mainly by Christian Europeans against Middle Eastern Muslims. And incidentally, the Crusaders killed a lot of Jewish people too. Now, the history of the real-life Crusades is long and complex, but there are 2 things that are undeniable. First, that the original crusade was set in motion by Pope Urban II, who stated that fighting against Muslims was such a commendable act that all the sins of the Crusaders would be forgiven for doing it. And secondly, that a lot of contemporary Islamophobes who have an extreme hatred of Muslims in Europe and North America routinely use Crusader imagery and quotations in their rhetoric and literature. I mean, there either is or has been a KKK newspaper called The Crusader. Do I really need to say any more? Now, again, I am just one Muslim, but I can tell you with a lot of confidence that the general reaction from Muslims to the word crusade and crusader is a negative one. It brings up not only historical injustices, but also the fact of Western culture constantly portraying us as objects of suspicion whose influence should be countered. And I will say very clearly that this general sense of us being a threat to the West makes acceptable any and all forms of violence against us, up to and including genocide. That's what Islamophobia does. So Paizo's use of the word crusade contributes to this general toxicity against Middle Eastern and Muslim-seeming people. Will Paizo fix this? Maybe. I haven't had any sort of back and forth discussion with the people in charge of the creative direction at Paizo. Considering everything that they have already done to fix the problems in their lore, they might, when they revisit the historical crusades in their lore, just call it something different. It might be they already have an updated internal policy to not use the word again. But there is another thing that Paizo is doing, and that is they are studiously maintaining a silence on a genocide that is being funded by their tax dollars and being carried out in the name of their country's strategic interests. This is Paizo operating under the restrictions of an Islamophobic culture that they have contributed to. A culture that believes it can be a heroic good time to role-play as an inquisitor or a crusader. Because after all, the topic is uncomfortable. It's polarizing. It's not their business. It's got nothing to do with them. It's not their fault. Life is hard enough as is. It's unfair to expect them to say anything about this. They don't have the resources to deal with the fallout. These are the arguments that I have gotten in the 6 months or so that I have been advocating for Paizo to do the right thing in speaking up about Palestine. And I get it. But I also get that these comments come from a culture that has a general disregard and callousness at best towards the lives of people who seem Muslim. And in fact, bucking this culture, which ranges from apathy to hostility towards Muslim-seeming peoples, is incredibly uncomfortable for them. This is Paizo's actions being dictated by the Islamic-phobic culture that they have helped, in a tiny way, to maintain. Speaking as a Muslim and a Muslim-seeming person, this is depressing as hell. And it's one of the reasons that I no longer feel safe in the Paizo fan community. This is honestly why I have persisted in this campaign for as long as I have. Paizo understands, correctly, that speaking up about LGBTQ plus issues regularly provides a proactive and strong message to people that their community is safe for LGBTQ plus people and their allies. By the same token, Paizo should recognize that not speaking up about Palestine does the opposite for those people and their allies. And what makes speaking in both these cases necessary is that both communities are threatened by the political climate of the time in the country that Paizo is a part of. So what's the call to action? What can we do? But one thing I encourage all of you to do is sign the open letter signed by members of the Paizo community to pressure Paizo and the Paizo Union to do the right thing. And really, it frustrates me deeply to say this, but if you are planning to buy something from Paizo for the holiday season, maybe just donate the money to relief agencies for Palestinian and Lebanese people instead. And if you do want to buy something tabletop role-playing game related, then maybe find creators that support Palestine and purchase from them. There have been 2 amazing Games for Gaza bundles on itch, and I hope that there will be more, for example. This is not a call for a boycott. Random boycotts against companies not really related to the issue of Palestine don't work. I encourage everybody to check out the BDS movement and join it instead for targeted boycotts. I have no regrets for having tried to get Paizo to speak up. There has been no failure from my side or from the people who have been amazing enough to sign the petition. The failure, thus far, is only Paizo's. So what's next for me in this channel? These videos are incredibly hard to make. I've never wanted to use this channel for this sort of advocacy. And delving deep into research that just confirmed how little concern there is for the rights and even lives of me, my family, and my community is very hard. And honestly, there's other advocacy and other projects I can focus on instead. Aouni El-Dous was a Palestinian child who died on the 7th of October 2023 when his apartment building was bombed by the State of Israel. 6 other children died in the airstrike. That should never have happened. And failing that one atrocity and war crime should have been enough for the world to step in and stop the madness. But it turns out that only one part of the world matters, and that is the United States of America. And American silence, such as that of Paizo's, is what has allowed that war crime to turn into a genocide that has gone on for more than a year. And honestly, a campaign of ethnic cleansing and apartheid that has gone on for more than 75. There's nothing else I can say here. But that is not true for American companies like Paizo and American unions like the United Paizo Workers.